I want to welcome everybody to the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union Drafting Policy Committee. As what I'll do today is read the agenda, and then we'll have a slight introduction of who is here, and then whether we need any rearrangements in the agenda format, depending on who has some special interest. Today is Monday, June 6th. That's a little bit after 4:33. So the policy agenda is we're going to have public comments. If someone's here from the public that wishes to express themselves along that line, we'll hear that. We have minutes to approve from the previous meeting. We have policy number 5145, condom availability, administrative regs, so that you can see that, so we can answer a question that took place in, I think, in North Bennington. Policy 6400, optimum class size, to have a discussion on that so we can move that along. Fundraising should be just a review. We should, so that everybody understands and know what was in there that finalized that policy. And then we have our tracking sheet. We have child abuse and neglect, and we have two versions of that to be looked at and discussed. One is to immediately change the wording so that we can put it back into place while we look at a revamping of it based on the consideration that we asked the committee group to go out and look at that and come back with a different take on how it should, if they think it should be. And then we have the tracking sheet and others, and our next policy meeting will be September the 12th. So with that's the agenda. I'll have to ask the members first, is there any, does this arrangement suits everybody? Do I need to move something from one number to the next up the list to be first, second, or third? Can we take them in that order? Okay. If there is none, then the first thing I would ask is that we introduce ourselves. We have name tags, but we'll just let, because of the public and we're on CAT TV may not see and know everybody. Kelly was sitting here and she just stepped out for a minute. I'll do that. I'm Leon Johnson here.
Dick France from Woodford.
John Bullock, North Bennington.
Tammy Stoll, Helena.
Ed Malloy, Shasberry.
Dave Barrow, Mount Anthony Union High School.
Frank Barnes, SVSU.
Donna Leap, Assistant Superintendent.
Lisa Poplaski, Administrative Assistant.
And we have two.
Larry Johnson, Shasberry.
Larry. Joe. And we have
Mike Foley, Shaftesbury.
Mike Foley. Is that?
That's right.
Okay. I've already introduced you there, Jackie. Okay. So on the agenda right now, we're up for public comments. Is there any public comments that need to be made concerning some of the items that we have discussed on the agenda for discussion? I hear that right now, so we can take it into consideration when we go through to try to make things move along as smooth as possible.
Well, if I can comment on that agenda.
This is Mike.
Yeah, Mike Foley, Shaftesbury. Your policy 5005, which in my opinion really should be first on the agenda. We've gotten over in Shaftesbury a lot of confusion over the role of mandated reporter when it comes to suspected child abuse. And we were told that your policy 5005 clearly states that it is not the role of a district employee to be an investigative judge or jury. And last time I was at a meeting here, and I want anyone at any time can interrupt me, said that language should definitely stay on any new policy rewriting. We also heard that Act 1 training that has now somewhat taken over, more or less, because this is somewhat outdated, although it hasn't happened yet. I'm under the impression that Act 1 training is even more demanding of mandated reporters to make reports in the cases when children come forward and say they were touched by adults in schools. I'm using that as an exact example because this is what we're dealing with. The thing that I found troubling was that Dick Franz's name came up by the chairperson of Shaftesbury's school board and said that Dick Franz said that that's who he took his advice from, that 5005 does not apply when a child comes forward and says that they don't feel comfortable or they do feel weird because they were touched by an adult in the school. Now, I want to make sure everyone here knows that because that's on May 11th, 2016, Cat TV. Richard Franz's name is mentioned by the chairperson is Fran Kinney, that said that's who he sought for advice. And I want to make sure everyone here knows that that is at the 35th minute and 50-second mark of that movie. And I think my children are now moving on from Shaftesbury. One, we're pulling out, but two more are going to be in your schools, and at least in the SVSU. I don't think there should be confusion. And if we're going to look for some, I'm sure you'll find some, because that seems to be what's going on in Shaftesbury. People seem to be confused about this policy, and to me, it couldn't be more clear. Now, I want to know if anyone else here is confused. If you had a child come to you, hypothetically, that says, excuse me, there's a man over there that touched me, and I don't feel comfortable, does that give you the option then, would you say you're going to go look at 5005, or is there another policy? And if you do look at 5005, would you say, hey, even though it says let's not investigate anything, because you introduce subjectivity and bias, I want to finish. That I want to make sure that if that's the case, is that someone here would say, no, we do our own investigations all the time, and we find a lot of kids can be maybe expanding on the truth or possibly, that's why we want to make sure, because as the superintendent here in a meeting here with me said, DCF doesn't want all the phone calls. That is what this superintendent in this building told me about 3 months ago, and says DCF does not want these phone calls. So now, is that something Dick Franz would now say, you know what, yeah, we've got a lot of kids' bottoms being touched in this supervision. We can't call every time.
I hear you.
And we've been on this now for about 6 months, and I've heard a lot of talk.
I think I
I want
got,
to know if you agree that that's the policy or not.
what I want to do is here to come in. I think I've heard enough to understand what you're asking and what the policy is going to say. The policy.
I just want to know what it says to everyone in this room, because I think everyone would like it to say something, but I think it's pretty clear the way it is.
We're going to go through the policy, and it's going to state exactly what the requirement is. And what we can't do is control what he or she say. Besides what you say, you're going to be able to go to the document and say, here it is right here. And the people that are employed by the district, or the people that are in the positions that have the responsibility on to them to do a job, is going to be well aware of what they need to do out here, regardless of what anybody say anywhere else. And so if we want to spend the time right now, I think that that one may require a little bit more time than what we're doing. Is that the only one? I'm going to move it, but I wanted to get these others out of the way, because I didn't think they're going to take a lot of time. And if we want to go through that, because I said I had two versions to that, and the other things ahead of
Would you
that
say,
are really
I'm sorry,
short.
two versions of?
I'll go over that. So what I'm trying to do is make sure I have your concern down as to what it is, and I'm going to answer that. We're going to answer that. So is there any other comments from the public concerning the agenda items? If not, I would like to move along as quickly as possible to get to this policy. So the first thing I'd like to have is just a motion for the committee, for the minutes from May 2nd, that they be approved from this board. Is that what took place? If everybody had a chance to look at the minutes and see what they were.
Move to approve the minutes of May 2nd, 2016.
Moved and approved. Second. Any comments for the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Any extensions? Objections? Okay. If not, so the minutes are so approved by this committee as to what took place last meeting. The second item on here is policy 5146, is condom availability. And this policy was going around, and We have representation from Mount Anthony and from North Bennington. From the meeting and what I gathered from the minutes out of the paper and other places, and we'll have them speak to that, is that North Bennington wanted to know what the administrative regs were clear to the policy before they just approved the policy. So before we go on, let me make sure that everybody know that the board is responsible for the policy, not mandating the administrative regs. We ask that the administrative regs be prepared so that we can see them, understand that they comply with the specifications, but we shouldn't be holding the policy up because the regs wasn't put into place. It's like the chicken and the egg or one or the other, but this board is responsible with SVSU as developing the policy. We ask that administrative regs be developed by the administrators and sent and attached and joint with what with the policies. What we're doing is making sure that they go on the site right with the policy so you can see them, but we should not be holding up that. So if I can, I'd like to hear from the representative from North Bennington as to what took place. That was my understanding what took place, and that we needed to make sure that everybody know that so that we can move these policies along.
Okay, my concern, or the concern of the board, I'll speak for myself, but it was shared by a few others, that the policy as written was very vague, and you couldn't understand how the policy would work without seeing the administrative regs. And this particular policy, no matter where it's implemented, is always a cause for controversy, so I think it's important for this committee to be absolutely clear what the policy would look like. So while I see that administrative regs for many policies are best left to the side, for this one I think we owe it to the community to really describe how this would work. So I prepared several suggestions that we could think about in terms of amending this policy that I'd be happy to talk about. I'll keep it brief. I'll wait for everyone to get a copy. Part of this was I was trying to put myself in the position of a community member who doesn't follow this type of issue very closely. So the first thing I would like to suggest is, in terms of a preamble or some introduction to the policy itself, we explain the context of it. So the American Medical Association and the American Academy of Pediatricians have both, as well as others, have come out with statements in support of policies like this. And I think to give the community a little bit more information, it would be helpful to either include that or at least include references to those statements in the policy itself. Moving on, I think, before I know you had, I think the principal from Mount Greylock was here. I missed that meeting. And in fact, I owe Lisa an apology because at the North Bennington meeting, I said that the minutes for that discussion were incomplete. I had no way of knowing that because I wasn't there. That was a very clumsy way of saying that some of my concerns weren't addressed in the minutes, so I apologize for that. But I was looking at the Mount Greylock policy, and it was very clear in terms of what it was and how it would affect the community. So I copied their very brief policy. In point number 2, it says condoms are available to students in grades 7 to 12 from the school nurse. Students receiving condoms also receive abstinence information. The interaction is strictly confidential and no records are kept in accordance with the school policy or school committee policy. Something like that, if it was in our policy, I think would make it very clear what the position of the SU would be on this type of issue. It wouldn't be left up to individual schools per se to decide whether or not condoms are available. I think that would be helpful for transparency and accountability. And finally, with respect to the type of counseling in the administrative regs, I forget the exact point, but it was it emphasized the advantage of using condoms over unprotected sex, which everyone would agree with, but there was nothing in there to imply that using them has its own inherent risk. And I think for full information, students need a clearer picture about the failure rate that should be included with the counseling that they get when they're distributed. So those are the suggestions for the policy, so I'd be happy to ask or answer any questions that you might have or concerns or.
That you get an opportunity to see the administrative reg
Yes,
for that? Okay, for that, and so we're talking about the policy piece. We have representation from the high school here, and we can hear the concerns, and that's one of the things we wanted to let everybody know, that this is just not, even though Mount Anthony, the high school 9 through 12 is implementing, but the community has concerns of how it is, and to make sure it's okay with them, and vice versa, in order to do that. And that's what we want to do, all inclusive. So who wants to be first? Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I reached out to John right after our meeting, and Kristen Harrington was the architect for a lot of what we based our policy on, was with me as well. We addressed the concerns, and I understand what the administrative regs. And I think what you have here, John, is a good way to make it transparent and add some meat to the policy. So I think that's a great idea. I think that I can understand where, you know, we because we may think it makes such sense that we take these as givens, we shouldn't assume that. And I think that makes it something that's much more readable and hopefully more, it's going to meet the needs of the public to understand that.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to shape it or frame it in those terms.
Did the regs meet with your, does that?
Except for that point number 3, which I think is easily addressed.
Well, look at number 3 says overnight.
No, I mean the point 3. I mean I forget which number.
Okay.
It's on
You mean adding the abstinence piece?
that was more of the. I can't see it.
On
Point number 3. There was a list of the types of counseling, and that might be.
and the administrative regs are in the policy.
Point number 4, the administrative regs.
Okay. Point 4 of the administrative regs, the primary responsibility of the school is to provide an education. Students seeking condoms in the school settings will receive education on the correct use of condoms, how to communicate with their partners about the use of condoms, and the personal decision making and the risks associated with unprotected sex activity. So,
Right. My concern with the way this is written, it could imply that condoms make sexual activity risk-free, and it doesn't.
How about the use?
So you would like to add that to that?
Yeah, specifically about the failure rates, especially if they're not used properly, because the failure rate is actually shockingly high if they're not used properly.
So
Okay.
could we, on the correct use of condoms, do something parenthetical there that says including information about the condom failure rate
Yes, that'd be fine.
if it is improperly
Yeah,
used?
yeah.
So
Okay.
I would suggest that. I would also suggest that we not limit, if we're going to change the policy in accordance with what you've provided, that we don't specify the school nurse, because we specifically want to have a male and a female available. And so that's where in the administrative regs, I think it's down a little bit more. Oh, no, it's actually number 5.
number 5.
Will have at least one male and one female faculty staff member trained to provide individual education. I mean, the female will clearly probably be the nurse, but we also want to have probably a health teacher or a PE teacher also trained so that kids will have an opportunity to go to either.
Right, we agree with that. I was gonna say that we didn't want to restrict that. I was done a lot of conversation about making sure that we had a male, a female, and others that the school may deem appropriate to make sure they provide the right type of information to the people. So just naming a school nurse would be one of the things we would want to do.
So it could be including but not limited to the school nurse or something
Or
like that.
specify some level of
Yeah.
training or something like that, that would.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to edit that now, or you want to come back to that, Lisa?
I think we just had a question about whether we're actually editing the regs now, or are you
Well,
going to make significant change to the policy?
We went to the regs for
Right.
that, but that we can take care of with it's the policy piece that we need to get first, if that's what,
Right.
for what you really want to change. And then Dave was agreeing that to provide the first question in here, and
Get the policy out.
that
Yep.
you have you're gonna hit the policy.
Yep.
Okay, so we need to pull that up. Okay, and here's the policy. So, the number one on the recommendation was that to be provide context of the policy include a reference statement of American Medical Association. So,
May I suggest maybe it would be easier if one or two of us worked on this and brought it back rather than doing it from
Yeah.
repeatedly?
if you if you desire, you wanted to do
Well, I know
that
there's
with
a lot
yeah.
else on the agenda, and I'd be happy to help with this.
Okay, would you want to work with Dave?
Sure.
Dave, and then they can run and make sure Glenda's in agreement with what you want there in terms of the policy piece and bring it back next month for us. We're saying, I said next month, we're gonna be here. September meetings is what our next meeting will be, September 12th, but we'll be ready for that, like September 12th. So, if
I would just mention that time was a consideration and that we were wanting, I think that the high school was wanting to start this as soon as it's possible, and that the policy has to come before they can start anything. So I don't know if there's any way we can, if we start over with the policy, it's gonna have to make the rounds to all the boards again. So
Everybody except for
Right.
North Bennington and SVSU have
has
adopted it.
approved, and so.
It's gonna put it out into,
I mean, it's won, everybody has
November.
won the policy,
it's
Everybody's
up to
adopted.
you.
and we've gotten that far?
Yes, sir.
Oh, we've
Yeah,
gotten all the way
yeah.
to. And
With
so,
with the exception of, pretty sure,
of
yeah.
North Bennington. And so, you're right, when we go back through, we would have to send it back to all of the boards to do that. But because
Is that true though? Because it wouldn't be a substantive change.
Yes, it would be.
yes, it would be, it'd be enough, if we're gonna change the policy, we needed to make sure that everybody else agrees, see? And that's the problem, it's difficult, North Bennington has these comments, Palmer may have some others, Shasberry may have some others, Woodford may have some others, and then Mount Anthony may have some consideration themselves. And then we have to make sure that everybody agree with the language in order to move this on. And so, thanks for reminding me that we have gone through all of the school districts. North Bennington is the only one that took no action in terms of adopting BSD that they adopt on the first. So the policy is 90-some% through the process, which
And the regulations, we can,
We
they're a
can work-
standalone, so we can edit those and not have it be going to every single board again.
right. So the question is what does Mount Anthony do in the meantime? Well, Mount Anthony has won and adopted the version that we have out here, and it shouldn't stop them from doing what they want to do, even though anytime a policy is on board, if there's consideration to be made, we can bring it back and look at it, and then it still needs to go through that process. So the question Donna asked is, what does Mount Anthony do? For that, Dave Frepson, you're here, you want to come on up. You'll be proceeding with the policy as prepared, and take on advice these comments that we're going to be coming back with some changes that's not going to stop the policy, not going to have no policy, but to make it clear and concise to everybody that there are other considerations to be made to it, that it's going to be changing, coming back around again. Does that make sense?
I have a suggestion for expediency's sake. Is it possible, would it make sense to include the suggestions that John brought before here as administrative regs, so we can get
That's
move
what I was
this?
saying.
And then later we can move those we can move that into the policy so that we're not delayed. So we can include those as administrative regs now, and then later
Well,
on
that's-
revisit this and
Put
move
it
that
on a future
to policy.
agenda.
That's
for
another way of doing it.
reconsideration.
That's a good idea. That's another way of taking it, and that way you wouldn't stop the policy. North Bennington, all the concerns that you have will be part of the administrative regs. Mount Anthony can continue. North Bennington will approve it, to that point, we're gonna come back and reformat the policy to move certain items that are in the administrative regs into the policy along that line. If we could agree with that, that's I'm
That
sorry,
would
I
move.
missed the point, John.
Yeah, that would move it along. I
Yeah.
think that it is a health concern that we take seriously, and I think that would hold it up for quite a long time.
So is that okay with Glenda and Dave and Dave? Okay. Holly?
I'm just curious, the school does start in August, we're in the beginning of June. Is there some reason that the policy committee doesn't meet for the next 2 months?
There is a reason that administrators and want some vacation and some other things to consider out here along that line. So it's no need to rush and work all during the
No,
summer.
I was just
That's
saying,
all.
why wouldn't the policy committee come back together and even before the end of June?
Well, we could. We can come back if
And
we
do it
wanted to,
right.
but I don't think it's necessary. We meet once a month when there's a lot of meetings going on.
Yeah.
But the proper way to do it is what I think everybody has hit on, is to add these in. If we get the consensus that we want to go to the administrative regs with these comments, the policy moves along. I don't know that if North Bennington meet again between now and, you're gonna meet.
Wednesday, yeah.
You're gonna meet Wednesday. So with North Bennington meeting Wednesday, the policy could be adopted with the administrative reg adjustments with the comments, and then we can come back in September with the information to say, let's move certain things out of the regs into the policy. And I think that's a better way to go with it.
But yeah, I mean, if we just do this with administrative regs, and if North Bennington adopts it on Wednesday, it would go to SVSU this month. Theoretically, it will be on the website, adopted before school starts.
Okay.
Right.
That's one
In
way
its
of moving.
current form.
Okay. I think that's a good way to go with it. So we're gonna,
Yeah, and then we'll put it on the agenda in September.
agenda set for September, move it to, with the information that was requested from North Bennington into administrative regs. North Bennington to look at it again for approval this Wednesday. SVSU to meet this month so that it'll be completely in its adopted form on the website so that everybody will know what it is that Mount Anthony is doing, and it's clear out there for them, and then we'll have a chance to revamp it in September.
So can I ask a
What
question about
thinks?
the regs?
Tammy? Yeah.
So are we gonna put in the regs, just grades 7 through 12?
Oh, no, we're going to be, the high school is the only one that's considering that, which is 9 through 12. One of the things that we wanted to consider in terms of the regs, in all the other districts, do we need a statement to indicate that the following school districts, schools levels has agreed, not disagreed to implement a condom policy, and had yes, no down. So that everybody would see that in the administrative regs. Do you think something like that would be helpful?
What we've done in other policies, I think that some things like attendance and credits and those sorts of things are different for each grade level, and so we usually just say administrative regulations for grades 7 to 12. So then that would just show that's the only place that they will be implementing it at this point. Then when
Because
the
that's-
middle school starts theirs, if they ever do, then they would start with administrative regulations for the middle school grades.
Right now it'd be 9
Right,
to
yeah,
12.
Right, oh, 9 to 12, I'm
Well,
sorry.
just
9
to
to
be
12.
clear, what I'd be suggesting would be in the policy, it would say 9 to 12.
Right.
I think that
Right.
would help Pownell, because we had a stumbling block with
Okay.
them thinking that it was elementary schools as well. So that's
Well,
something-
it would be if Pownell wanted to do that, but,
Right.
but that's not what I'm hearing from anybody. So we're saying it's gonna be 9 through 12. The middle school says, I'm not ready for this yet. And so, and no other school district says, I'm ready for this. So I was wondering whether we needed to say anything else besides that. So Donna has recommended that we go from 9 through 12 for the high school and let it state that way, in terms of the administrative regs.
Right here.
So we had that in the
It says,
policy,
yeah.
but,
We were trying to leave the door open
Right.
for, to be the choice of the school,
Yeah,
of
right.
the board.
One of the concerns I had was if you have the grades in the administrative regs, they can be changed without community input, which I think is a bad idea. So having the 9 through 12 in the policy, I think would satisfy that, because if you wanted to change it, then people have a chance to talk about whether it's a reasonable change.
Well, according to this, it would be by a board decision.
it has to be the board decision. It wouldn't be just something that somebody just gonna, throw up out there. You're not gonna do this in Pownell, or you're not gonna do it just in BSD because you have a feeling. That statement of contents shall be made available to students of the SVSU, that's part of that block of it. As their governing board deem appropriate. And so the board has to make a solid statement and do all the actions to be able to put that in place. And so right now, the only board that's saying they want to do that is the Mount Anthony Board, 9 through 12. And so in the administrative regs, you're saying this is for Mount Anthony grades 9 through 12 and blah, 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 and it doesn't apply to anybody else. Okay? All right.
So you'll edit,
Well,
you'll edit the.
are we all set?
To say that?
Can,
Yeah.
we all set, so
Yes.
we can move on with that. Thank you for that. I didn't realize it was gonna take that much.
Then this
What
goes
time?
on the
What?
September
Yeah,
agenda.
but you
This will be on the September agenda with Bruce and,
Oh,
they working on bringing certain characteristics into the body of the policy, and for us to review. Okay? All right, let's see here. The next one is optimum class size, 6,400. And this policy, we had out last time to talk about certain things in terms of not having a certain class number in the policy. We thought that what we can do is that the language need to be add something to the policy, and that give the responsibility to the superintendent for making sure that the class sizes, small or large, be reviewed, and as opposed to having to come to the board on that. Is that section 9 through, let's see, class will be determined by, okay, the superintendent needs.
I think a little farther down there is one that
Uh,
might be caused.
Yeah.
okay.
where are we going?
Principal's decision
It's in those bold
will reflect such, oh, okay, let's see now, what did I?
I mean, that stuff is all straight.
Class
Yeah,
size, while sensitive to budget consideration, must be consistent with the safe staff pattern, including para educators who are assigned to the classroom and other duties such as, rather than those assigned to specific students along that line. But
It
what-
it was down like here by line 56. It does, it talks about the minimum, but you wouldn't have to have that number. But then it does say, if a course's enrollment falls below this minimum, it could say below or above expected class sizes, or the superintendent or his designee will.
I think we
Okay.
scrapped that though
Well-
because of flexible pathways.
the reason
It
we
would still be discussed
we had-
before it would be placed.
right, we had some discussion, and Bruce, he's not here today and so forth, and I've said that. Part of the issue has been, and this is where the board has some responsibility, is to help, and I'm gonna put it out. we need to make sure we provide language such that we help administrators do their job when it comes to the fact that there may be classes that are dropping below certain numbers and they are being asked to create additional courses to maintain a full schedule, or they may be asked to take on additional classes work if they're above the certain level, and the policy doesn't give them enough muscle to say, wait a minute, the board is saying if the numbers start to drop down, we need to talk about that. And I need to review that with them so that you won't think it's automatic that you're going to tell me I can create another class to be able to maintain a certain level of students in a group. And I'm trying to put it there that way. And they need help from the board in that area in terms of making sure that the policy has strength so that when there is a class to come up to be offered and they want to turn the class down, they're not reluctant to turn it down because they have board support behind them in there. Without that, the emphasis and the pressure on the administrators in the area to say, well, you've been a good teacher, and yet your students are dropping down, but I'm going to create this class over here so that you can still continually have a 0.1 FTE or whatever along this line. And we're saying, wait a minute, we want to give them some strength in the policy to be able to push back and say, no, that's not what we're going to do. I got to review that with somebody else. It's not the right thing. I mean, it may not be a go, and it gives them a way to do their job the way they need to do it, and it gives us what we want as board members to make sure that we're not having 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 students in a class versus a normal class size of 16 to 20 or whatever along this line out there. But if there is a real need for one because of flexible pathways, and the principal and the superintendent see that, yep, this is what's got to happen, then we got the option to be able to do that as well. So, Jackie.
Is there a reason that we don't have anything listed under, let me see what one it is. Line 30.
Line 30.
Everything was scratched.
I think I remember why.
Ruth? No?
Oh,
If I'm understanding your question correctly, I think the reason for scratching that was the recommendations are specified in that section, and we could put those or append those to the end of the policy rather than having it in the policy without changing the policy itself. Along those lines, we could do the same thing with the fire code.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, that was it.
That was it. That was it.
3 whole paragraphs that were
Right.
listed there rather than including all of them.
They were going to go out to the administrative part so that we wouldn't have to worry about those. That's right.
Does that get to your question?
So everybody understand the rationale behind the minimum number that we had in there, but we don't want to put the number in here. We're saying we want to put the language there to be able to allow administrators to know that the board is concerned with low numbers in the classroom and that they need to be reviewing those, and that's just not a given. Dick?
I think that's a smokescreen.
Okay.
I think that's a smokescreen for saying for meddling.
Go ahead. Smoke green.
I think if you want to report on how many people are doing what, you can get that from all those administrators fairly easily. And they're going to listen to you if you have approval or disapproval, I'm pretty certain. But to establish a standard that says the boards will determine what educators can work with and what they can't, is no more than a budget saving thing. It doesn't address an educational need, which may be happening with personal learning plans or what's next, college credits that, you know, that they leave the school grounds and take a class at CCV or something else. I don't know where you go with that, but I mean, I'm always in favor of letting the educators do the education. The board doesn't know how to do that, and then
Well,
should be responsible.
Were you saying it would go to the superintendent to discuss?
That's where it's going. It's not gonna go to the board. We're saying we wanna take it out from the board and let it go to the superintendent. But we want them to know that something is out there that they need to be looking. And it's not the board, the superintendent.
I still see it as board over controlling the situation, but that's my personal.
See, and so I gave you one scenario, and I'm trying to make sure you understood where that came from and where the emphasis are. And I can't put it any plainer than that. If we don't, I mean, the emphasis is that the pressure is on, and Jackie comes to me and said, Leon, we've been together for here a long time. I've been, doing this. I want to teach a grape rolling. And I can't turn her down because she's been so good, I'm just wanting to know that, and there's nothing to say that that somebody else is going to be looking at that and reviewing that would mean and not let her be able to do that, because she said my classes are dropping, but I can go to something else over here, so now you can keep me as a full-time teacher, because not only am I going to teach this one, I'm going to add something else over here. And is that, you say yes, educational wise we're getting something done along that line, but we need to make sure we match these things with the curriculum, the requirements that are out here along this line, and we create classes and say that they are just for no credit, vice versa along this line, and we got a ton of them. So have the administrators look at that, is what we're saying. Have the principals review with the superintendent these things so that it won't be, they won't be left alone to make that decision under the duress that they may be under in those circumstances. That's what that's for.
Can we ask one of the principals who are here?
And we have one here today, and two, and the one is
And
not
ask
here.
their feelings about it?
What I didn't want to do is put anybody on the spot any more than what I stated along that line, because of the way I said it out here. And so that's I think if that's clear enough to say the examples that I gave in terms of provide class loads for a full-time teacher. If the numbers are dropping, I start to go out and create other types of classes that would allow me to maintain my full teaching status, as opposed to being a 1 or a 0.8 or something along that line, and it may not be in guideline with what is required, and we're still paying for a full person when we could have been paying for a 0.8, or we should be combining or doing some other thing out here. They need help in that area. And that's what we're saying. We need to make sure that we give them what they need to be able to do the right thing. And that's not budget as much as it is having to maintain a full or part-time body to be able to teach to the lesson plans or teach to the requirements that we need to have for something that we need to have in place. And I don't know that I can put it any other way, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot any more than that.
But is that, when, just asking, is it true that principals have been
Yes.
approving these?
I mean, asking.
So, I mean, I don't understand, the mechanism should be accountability to their board, right? What am I missing in terms of, what is this policy attempting to solve that can't be solved currently?
What are you missing in terms of your board? I don't think the board stops to even, at the budget time, you look at, well, how many teachers we got? What's the budget and how many teachers? And then you ask the question, what can I cut? And then you ask, well, I got students in all these classes, and so it's difficult. So at the time that when you're looking at numbers at certain points and the numbers are dropping, that's the time that you start looking at what it is that you need to be doing, educational wise.
I thought that already happened. Is that not true?
Well, everybody thinks that that's happening, but I hate to say it's not exactly 100% true. And that's why we're asking for this out there.
Well, we also have taxpayers who are involved, and taxpayers often hear, well, Vermont has so many schools and so many students, but the students who were here 10 years ago, there's less. However, in Bennington, that's not the case. But they want to know how come they're still paying more money for less students.
Right.
And so this policy would help clarify that, but I don't know if we did.
So I don't.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So we're right now, we're not talking about putting six that's been stricken back in, correct? We're talking about leaving as policy for grades 7 through 12, minimum class size shall take into account proficiency-based graduation requirements and the use of flexible pathways for graduation, as well as student-teacher ratios which are supportable by the district's budget.
Right.
So, and that principals, as they are thinking about enrollment over time, and as they are thinking about trends within their building, take this into account, report to the superintendent. Is that what you're saying?
That's what should happen.
I mean, I think that's what is happening. And I think that from a principal's point of view, not being tied to a minimum number like we used to be with a yearly minimum of 10 students per class, being able to have the flexibility to look at flexible pathways, proficiency-based graduation requirements, and the needs of the students are a good thing. I mean, that's what we want to do that, because it gives us a little bit more flexibility to make calls.
We want to do that.
Right. And I mean, as a principal, I'm perfectly fine. I mean, I already report to the board. I already sit down with department heads before we do the master schedule to look at how many sections we're going to be offering of things based on actual enrollment. We already do that. That is done prior to giving out contracts, so we can make any adjustments we need to at that point in time. And that would be done in conjunction with the superintendent, correct? I mean, I think that practice is in place. I think this makes it clearer.
The problem that
That's what we're already doing.
Right, the part that we're talking about is the numbers when they're dropping down in certain classes, types.
Right,
that-
and we may come back to the education committee and say we would like to offer this class instead of this class, but those decisions aren't driven by numbers. Or at least at the high school in my year there, they have not, those decisions and those requests for additional classes haven't been driven by numbers. They've been driven by student interest. And they've been driven by updating some classes. Like for example, this year we floated a new class instead of the former journalism class to look at more social media kinds of things and all that. So I mean, it's, but the decisions about whether to offer a new class or not are not driven by number.
So when Jackie mentioned one of the things we said, here's where you, in that scenario, we have classes, an opportunity where numbers are dropping. We're paying, the increase in budget is going up, the student count's going down, and the number of teachers that we have in place is not changed and increasing. And we're saying that we have done everything we could to make sure that we provided the right numbers of students under certain types of classes along that line, without having, and if we've done everything we have in those areas to make sure that the classes are being filled to their capacity for a certain type, as opposed to making sure that, well, on the flexible pathway or any other pathway, I'm gonna create something over here to make sure that I fulfill my obligations in terms of a .1 staffing versus a .8 staffing. When the numbers don't say do that. We can create anything. Boards look at that and they say, okay, yes, this is a 1-for-1 exchange, but is it necessary? I mean, I'm going into those things a little bit more than what I wanted to make sure, but those are the scenarios that are happening out here. So when it comes down to budget, you says, okay, I think I had one of the other board members says, look, okay, keep the budget right there. They come around and we said, we're gonna cut the budget. Now, you're looking at head count cut versus something that we could have done by looking at how many options of classes that we had versus this and making sure the numbers will fill and we don't have to go that route. And you don't have to go that route.
And so we've got 2 points where that happens. So there's 2 points of collaboration on that. One is when we are setting the budget and we're looking at the overall enrollment projections. We're looking at how many students are incoming, how many students are graduating, and what the kind of overall profile of things are. And so when we start to plan for the budget, that's the first conversation. We report on current class sizes, we make projections and predictions, we make budget cuts or not based on those projected numbers, and the board talks with principals and we come to some consensus with the board. That's the first point of collaboration on this. The second point of collaboration happens after the budget's been approved and when enrollments are in and kids have chosen classes. And at that point, we look at all of the numbers again, we look at all of the sections again. And that is before contracts are assigned. And we can again say, you know, these numbers aren't supporting 5 sections of biology. We're gonna cut 1. And what does that mean for staffing? So we've got that second point there, and that's the conversation with the superintendent that may or may not impact the actual number of contracts.
And that's the
So
part
we've got 2
that-
points, and I think this empowers this.
And that's the part that we're trying to make sure happen that may not have always been happening in places. And I mean, I've been asked by administrators and other heads of department areas and so forth that we need to do some in that area. And so I'm trying, without naming people, I'm saying there needs to be something done out there. And parents are asking the same type of supportions in the public and saying there's some weaknesses in here that we need to look at that you may not realize that are happening along that line. And I'm just trying to point it out as plain as day. I'm teaching. I don't have the students. I'm going to be a .8, and instead of being a .8, I can teach another class of a .2, and I'm now become a full teacher. And I'm expecting you to go ahead and approve that, and we move along. And as a result of that, we're still paying for it as a budget factor when we shouldn't. The numbers can be consensus. So that's an example that I'm trying to make sure you understand.
So,
And I think this empowers those 2 points of oversight. The first with the board, and the second, once the schedule's built with the superintendent. I think that empowers that.
So
like the condom policy, maybe this, what Ms. Cresco said should be in an administrative policy.
we can, in the administrative parts, yeah, that's fine, it can be an administrative parts to do that. We're just trying to make sure that, that those concerns are addressed. This is,
Yeah,
no.
I thought for a second that was in the administrative regs, but it's not.
No.
Well, it kind of should be because it clarifies what's going on. Because there's no taxpayer out there who wants to spend more money than we have and making classes of 2 and 3 without knowing why.
Right.
You know,
Right.
in some school districts, they say, okay, here's the amount of money you have per student. So if each student has $13,000, well, the school then gets 13,000 times 400 and work with that money. You know, you have to take everything out of it.
And it makes it more transparent. I mean, it points it right out there for the public to say, well, they're looking at our interests, in terms of making sure we're maximizing the use of our teachers and the number of students, and we having personal learning plans to make sure that everybody is getting done what they need to do because somebody is checking on it. And if we don't put it in a certain way, it comes to question, and it keeps coming to question, should I say. So, what do you think?
Are you wanting language in there that says that, Leon? Is that what you're asking?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, so, because in number 6, we've crossed out all of that, and some of it could be edited to be saying, like you could start with, say something like, class sizes are subject to high-quality standards and budgetary constraints. Therefore, the board has established the following guidelines needed in the course for successful operation and financial consideration. And then, we didn't want that number, but then the next, we didn't want 10. But then the next bullet says, if a course's enrollment falls below minimum standards, a review by the superintendent his or her will be conducted. If a course's enrollment increases to a size above optimal standards, which also happens, a review by the superintendent will be conducted. And then just get rid of the rest of it.
I think that's the
Is that
language
what
we
you want
need.
to have in there?
That's
A
exactly
simpler
right.
statement?
Without the numbers.
But then are you back to, if you're going to have a minimum standard in there, don't you have to articulate what it is, and then you're back to a minimum number?
Well, you're gonna get that anyway, because the standards tell you to operate certain things, whether they're in administrative regs or in the policy.
You need a statement before that that says the superintendent and principal will have a discussion.
We'll set the minimum
We'll set them
standard
at minimum standard.
based on flexible pathways and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And based upon monetary considerations.
And you can do it that way. That's the way to do it.
So do you want to fix the language?
Yes,
Shall we do that?
we can fix it.
Can you do that, Lisa?
So am I unstriking 6, the initial, this part?
Yeah.
Whoops, not that part.
Unstrike it, yeah.
Unstrike. Okay.
Now, go before class sizes, take that off. See where it says class sizes? No,
Oh, up here.
there, yeah.
Take,
Just go back to the beginning. That should start with class sizes,
gotcha.
not just the high school. So
Yeah.
every grade. Take that off.
Come on, mouse.
Subject to, what would you like to say about to educational quality and budgetary constraints? Right?
Right.
Now, what about line 51, 52, 53, 54?
Well, that speaks to the qualifications of the proficiency base. I think
That's the one we're
Good.
gonna stay.
and then it leads into the next one that's about quality,
So-
maintaining the quality.
So
Yeah.
59 comes out,
Yeah,
a yearly
that's-
minimum.
That
Yeah.
stays stricken, this one
Yep, that stays stricken.
gets unstricken.
Yes.
So, why,
Try it, just see, and then the next one is unrestricted too.
why can't that
Okay.
just follow 6?
Yeah, that's, can the 2 6s be combined?
Oh, the 2 6s up there,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, this just
Yeah,
needs
so
to be.
take out the second 6, leave in the first 6.
That was just, that's cleanup, so
Yeah.
just strike that, okay.
Okay.
Hey, did you want to
And
say
the-
superintendent, principal and superintendent?
The courses enrollment increases above percent effect on education. Would be advised. But sometimes, we do want the superintendent and the principal if it's not.
I think you want to say
Before or
class size
after?
minimums
Clap,
and maximums are determined by,
It's the same.
are subject to.
Oh, at the start, you mean,
Yes.
up on the 56, class
Because
size,
you're referencing something that hasn't been stated.
minimum and maximums.
No, class size means class size.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Class size.
because we've got the
Wow.
6 above.
because the standards are gonna be on the other side, all the recommended standards for what goes into and creating in the reference for the administrative regs to use.
Well,
Okay.
somehow or other you have to say that there, because it's not there. You have to say, who determines the minimum and maximums?
Well, you could put a line in on, right
Yeah.
after that, instead of 10 students per class, say the principal and superintendent will establish appropriate class sizes.
Okay,
So straight
No,
this
you
back
No,
out.
no, leave
No.
that, but maybe before it.
Aren't minimum and maximum standard class sizes in the Vermont regs for schools?
recommendations of what goes out there for criteria are in there. But we're saying when
Right,
they
so why
start
don't
to
we just-
change,
Why don't we just reference that?
we will,
That
be.
is
They
referenced.
are referenced in there, but what we're saying here is that we want to make sure that it states who's responsible for looking at them under what constraints out here and how they're doing it, and being transparent for the public to be able to say, this is happening, and somebody is looking at this stuff, and they're taking this into consideration, and who's doing it? We're saying the principal and the superintendent.
Will establish.
Now, how about we'll bring recommendations under the amount of whatever we decide to the attention of the board.
No, that'll.
Well, we
that will
didn't
cause
want to,
problems.
we wanted to
Well,
leave it.
the board, my reasoning for that is the board is supposed to oversee all this.
No,
I understand this is
No,
built.
they're not.
Right, no. So what we wanted to do, we'll see that, but, I mean, in a different way, but we wanted to make sure we got it here and that we hold the principal and the superintendent for the school along that line. And when it comes to budget and the other things that Glenda already spelled out and said, we're gonna ask those questions and they're gonna have the information because this is telling them what they need to go out and do. So Dave had a question.
Okay, I don't know if this is too general, but if we said something, if there is a concern that a class size is low, a review by the superintendent and his or her designee will be conducted. So we don't tie ourselves into a minimum and maximum.
Size.
Low or high.
Right.
Because the higher number is
Could be
governed by building and grounds and
Right.
fire regulations and all that kind of
So
stuff.
it addresses the intent without tying us up to a definition of what minimum and maximum is.
Right, well, it won't tie us up here, but the regulations give you that anyway.
40 kids building a house.
But we wanted it in the policy. So did that capture what you wanted? The principal and the superintendent will establish appropriate class size numbers.
Well,
And vice versa.
somehow or other that has to be shifted up, so it's based upon a monetary consideration.
It's all
It's all up
following,
under
so it's
that.
all right above.
It's all up under that. And we didn't want
This,
that to
like,
be
this
the
line will
sole,
disappear.
we didn't want that to be the sole thing to say monetary, but it's that,
It's a big thing.
yeah.
You could combine those two lines and just say, if a course's enrollment falls above or below the standards, then you wouldn't need the second. But you could
The
say the
standards.
quality standard. That made
I
it.
don't know what that did. Gosh, this thing cannot do. I don't know what happened
I think the font went down on it.
there.
Different line.
It did, but it didn't. Oh, there it is. Never mind, I hit the wrong button. There we go.
So we want the quality standard. Okay. So I think that would,
And then you
I-
can strike the
This would be
second.
D, right?
Then you can strike
So
the
then
second.
you go up to line 25.
No, not.
Oh. But it's reiterated in line 25.
No, it
Between
shows.
64.
okay, I want to make sure we got all
This
this
one
right
goes-
here for,
Strike.
so that, with that stricken, will be conducted and so forth along that.
Okay, before we go to line 25, can we go up to the first 6? Can we use the first 6 instead of the second 6?
You mean class sizes are subject to educational quality
Right, can we
standards?
strike that and go back to what you have above it?
For
No,
grades
because it's
7,
not just for 7 and 12, 7 and 12. This is really.
So then,
So actually, this has to be.
That's gonna be,
So can you just take out grades 7 through 12 and just go minimum class size?
into account efficiency based, you know.
I think it muddies it.
Because, yeah, because it talks about proficiency based, and that's only 7 to 12 right now.
Okay.
It's like you're saying it 3 times though.
Yeah, it is.
You're saying it up in number 4, and you're saying it in 6. So somehow or other, the 2 6s have to be combined.
Well, the 2 6s are
Four.
combined, but you,
That
Yeah.
stuff
No.
is all not there.
Right.
that 6 is only 1 6. You just
Right.
left it there so that we can consider
Oh,
that. But
okay.
People can
that's
see,
all.
that'll disappear.
That'll,
Yeah, it
that's
will go
gonna.
away.
We edit it and we want to know what was
And
there
this-
before we move on.
This will
So-
move a bit.
Yeah.
And you don't think they
Okay.
should be flipped?
Right. Yeah.
Since,
Yeah.
Okay.
The second 6 should be on top, and
Was
the
it the longest thing?
first
Yeah,
6
no,
should
no.
be on, below it. No?
No.
I think so.
Okay. So, for the times, I think if everybody can sort of live with that the way it is now.
To be honest, I'd rather come back to it cleaned up so we can see it fresh next time we meet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd
So,
like to see with all the strikeouts.
okay, so we'll, if that's the only thing that was missing in that piece, and so we want to bring that back, Dave.
Maybe it's just that I'm an old coach and we keep scoring all that, but when you refer to minimum this and that, isn't somewhere it's gonna say what the minimum is?
In the
It does.
regulations.
It tells you the
So that's
regulations.
on there.
The regulations spell out what the criteria are for determining what a size it is. Like in this room here, you can only bring so many in here, just like the code, because you only have so many chairs. It says that everybody should be seated. You can only have so many because you're seated.
So that's
the
that'll be
regulation.
there somewhere.
That's some of the regulations that are out there. For lab classes, you only got so many desks that you have sinks. You can only have so many. For social studies, for everybody have a big desk, you can have 60 or whatever in that classroom or whatever. Those are the things that exist out there. What happens is the individual ones, when they start to go so low, they need to be packed in. When I say 60, and somebody says, I got 65, we're saying, wait a minute, we ought to create a new class here. We should create a new section so that we wouldn't have that many in here, and here's the reason why.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that'll be back next time cleaned up, and
Okay, just knowing though, it has to go to the boards in this form. Ultimately, it has to go because
yeah,
people want to know what we've changed.
right. Okay, Dave?
Larry, can we skip up to number 6? I know this gentleman came here.
Yeah, and I thought we were gonna be done way before now, and that's what I was just
We always
looking.
do this to ourselves.
Right, we'll do just that. We'll go to 6, and the question, number 6 has to do with child abuse and neglect. And I mentioned at the last meeting that we were,
just a minute,
what was that? Wait a minute.
yeah, I just have we just,
On the other policy?
no, we just approved minutes that, this policy, I don't know where it came from. We approved the minutes that last month Bruce Lee, which he wasn't here, and I were to work on to rewrite the policy according to the new laws and regulations, which we did do. I'm wondering where this came from.
I'm going to go to that, and that's, well, you would.
Thank you.
Okay, and this is what it said. There were, at our last meeting, we asked Holly and Bruce to take a look at, because in the policy, we had the language that didn't refer to the new agency, DCL. And we started to go through it at the meeting, and it needed to make sure that the telephone number was in the right place because it had SRS. And we said that, well, because of all the things, just like we're pushing for time now, we said we'll have 2 people go through it, Bruce and Holly, take a look at it and come back and bring it back. Well, that process is in the works. In the meantime, they sent today, in which I didn't have a lot of time, I got to start to review that. And I think you may have done a lot more than what I can say that we can get in place between now and the next meeting. So what needed to happen here in terms of what we really wanted to have was the name change from DCF from SRS to DCF and the right telephone number. And then we'll be able to continue on and come back for all the things that you and Bruce wanted to consider adding into a policy out here along that line that may be different. The question that's come that everybody's mind is the directions. And it's clear in the policy as to who has what responsibility to do out here. And that's what we want to say. And it's odds with the first, well,
Which one do you want me to put up?
We're going to put up the policy 5000, the first one that we had with just the DCF changes in it.
The current.
The current.
Okay.
The current policy. We have a current policy and no other policy is in place until it goes around to all the boards. And I'm going to get to you, and I wanted to make sure you... I want to
I
make sure...
respectfully have to disagree with us putting
Holly,
this back.
Holly, I'm going to get to you, but I want to make sure you understand what's taking place and everybody understands what's taking place. Okay?
Can I speak for one moment? I understand what's taking place. What happened at the last meeting, as reflected in the minutes, was this is a mess, and it would be rewritten according to the new laws and reporting. We had the discussions about what you're talking about now going back to. It's wrong. That's why we did the work on the new policy that you're trying to keep the old one. That's not right.
And so I'm trying to make sure you understand the process by which we're going to go to.
Okay, you tell me the process.
We have a policy in place. That policy had an incorrect name in place and number. We needed to change that immediately so that we keep a policy in place. At the same time, we wanted to have a group, a committee, go out and look for other things that may need to be considered for the policy and rewrite. We're not there with that yet. That's the second part. And so I wanted everybody to understand in this policy, the names, the problem that everybody was having some concerns with, it was called an SRS as opposed to DCF. DCF needed to be in there, and we can do that and keep this policy in place until we review the status of the next review of the committee, which was you and Bruce bringing forth to the board. And that's what I wanted to take place here along that line. We had someone to come and ask a question about who's responsible, and I want to answer that question because that's what need to be stated in here as to who is responsible for reporting something. And it's clear as to who's reporting. And the bullet points in the policy states that any school district employee, regardless of whether he or she is a mandated reporter. That's clear. It says that they are mandated reporters, should report suspected child abuse, neglect to DCF, and will then notify the principal or his or her designee. I don't know how clear you can be with that.
The law?
I'm just trying to make sure that we're telling everybody this is clear directions. So I want to iron out those problems that somebody's bringing out and saying something. And if the principal or the designee is a person suspected of the child abuse or the person who suspects of abuse or neglect, a report should be made directly to DCF. And that's clear. So we can now move that into place, and then we can go out and do other stuff if we wanted to do something else. But that's clear. That's it. What's clear about that, that says regardless of whether he or she is a mandated reporter,
They're all mandated
shall
reporters.
report. That's right. They all are. So, Holly,
The directive of the law is to make the call. The directive of the law isn't to turn around and I understand, month we had the discussion. They make the call because they are not the investigators. I understand they're close-knit, probably have trust and will come and say, Glenda, I made a call, just to give you the heads up, but for no other reason. They don't have to, it's not the law.
Right.
They are covered for making the report. We should not be putting out a policy that's muddying the water. It should state, a person that has a suspect, makes the call. That's it. And we did that in this one, but I guess your directive was to put the old one back with all the stuff we said needed to go, so.
What I'm saying to you, and
The
making
directive
sure
is
you
on.
understand that what we
I
have.
understand
Okay.
clearly.
Can I make a suggestion?
This is, yes.
The
if
directives
you-
need to be
Can we
very
hear
clear.
what she's
Yeah.
written?
Well, we're gonna get to that, and I'm saying here, there's two forms, two phases that we gotta go to. And one is that we wanted a name change that we had a problem with.
Which I did.
And the name change was the only thing that actually stated that. Now, we can tweak the language to say certain things a certain manner, a certain way if we want to, but it wasn't anything wrong, and everybody keeps looking at saying, is something wrong with the policy? What it was is that we had SRS and the number needed to be updated.
No.
Okay, and so what I want to do is make sure, I heard your comments at the very beginning, and you have representation from Shaftesbury here, and that's Holly, and we
No,
want to
that's
make
Mr.
sure we clear up.
That's Mr. Malloy.
And, yes, I'm sorry, and Ed, we want to make sure that what your concerns are heard, and that the policy address that. And if I got things right, the question was, who is
No,
responsible
that
for
wasn't the
reporting?
question. Everybody that's a mandated reporter, we know. I'm asking the slim definitions that people are deciding on are suspected, and it is abused and neglected. And we're getting from Dick Franz to our board chair, listen, that said, this does not apply to a child who was touched. It's in the minutes, it's in the meeting, it's recorded. My problem is, and the superintendent's problem, who
I
said
wanna-
it's fine to do an
I wanna make sure
investigation,
you stop,
said-
because I got the comments from you, and I understand that. This policy that
It's
we're
very
talking
clear.
about. That's right, and so what I'm trying to, I don't want to start naming other people for doing something.
This is part of the confusion. We're having confusion at this board.
That's Shaftesbury, whatever
No,
it
it's
is.
Dick Franz,
Well,
and he should be able to speak for himself.
we're going to take care of that, and I'm going
His
to
name
ask.
was mentioned.
I'm going to ask that you refrain, so that we can make sure that we do the things that we need to do. I understand your comments. I got
This is
them.
16 years old.
I got it, and so we'll
We
be
got
able to
confusion.
speak to things here, and to me and the rest of the board is clear as to what should be happening, regardless of what somebody misspoken or if spoke or some way or whatever. The policy is what it is. And so that's what I'm trying to make sure everybody understand. Because we say a lot of things. This is a drafting committee. We're gonna
I'm not
discuss,
talking about this here.
we're gonna do things along that line, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna finalize what needs to happen to be able to make sure that all the boards go out and vote on it and approve it. And the easiest thing for me to do in terms of directing is to make sure we correct the minimum things wrong with the policy is to put the DCF in and the correct phone number, and we get that out of the way, and then we'll move on to the next phase of what we want to do in terms of Bruce and Holly's consideration of the policy. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay?
However, you
Okay.
said to save time, you asked this committee to draft something. So I would personally like to hear the draft.
We're going to get to that, but the time is that we have, this change that we're talking about doesn't require that it goes all the way around to all of the boards to do everything, because it was an editorial correction. The other changes require, if you're going to change the format of the contents of the information, it's going to go to SVSU, it's going to go to all of the boards, everyone's going to go get a chance to go through it, and then we're going to come back and so forth along that line. That's going to take a lot more time than what we have right now to do that, Not taking it off the table, I'm saying this is the process and we need to consider that. That's what I'm trying to get you on.
So that being said, can we hear it now?
Okay.
Well,
When I get to this
Can we
part,
agree to this so that
when I-
this is corrected and then move on to look
The
at the
editorial.
other one
The
in a parallel
Okay.
process?
Right.
At the,
I'm gonna, you, at the meeting, when you have somebody else, Holly, you wanna say, go ahead.
at the last meeting, the elected board on this table directed Bruce Lee and I to rewrite the policy, which we did. It was done. This came to me, let's see, Wednesday, a week and a half ago. I don't know the stumbling block of putting this back with changes, because this could go around in the same measure. Now, this one says, report child abuse and neglect. What we've done to this, reporting of child and vulnerable adult abuse, sexual abuse, and sexual violence. It covers it all. It does not, it states the law, it has directives. I don't know why we're trying to, we had this discussion last month about the time
I think I
and
tried
the
to make,
striking.
I heard you, and I'm trying to make sure it's clear to everybody that we have an editorial correction. The process of correcting an editorial correction can happen and go back out, and we'll continually to work. The board then can consider the committee recommendation to change other forms of the policy. But what has to happen, it's going to go to SVSU once it comes out of here for our review. Then it's going to go for all of the other boards before it becomes a warning to be able to replace the current policy. That's going to take months to do that.
It's
Okay?
done.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about getting it
That's
approved.
the problem.
That's the problem.
That's
Yes,
the problem.
People are nitpicking what you've got already and saying it doesn't apply, so now how do we feel as a public to
You
say
have not
it
been
could take a long
recognized
time?
We could have voted to change the language 20 minutes ago and then moved on to what Holly
We're trying
has.
to
but
move
we're
on,
wasting-
Holly.
we're
We're
trying.
trying to move on.
Do you have this?
I'm trying, yes.
Thank you.
I'm trying to get you to understand why we're having to do this in that manner.
Then why wasn't this one warned?
Because you and Bruce was a committee to bring this to us.
By your
I have
words
it.
to have it ready for this month.
And so I have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll bring it on the table once I get it cleared up to get on the table.
It's a
So
draft.
right
It's a
now,
draft. It's a
Absolutely,
draft.
like any other one that's warned to be gone over.
So right
Okay,
now,
I'm not gonna argue, I'll go back and listen to what was said
Okay,
last.
so-
So call the question.
so what I asked that everybody look, what we did to this policy is change the name of the agency in terms of, you need to contact and update that, and that would be able to go out and we wouldn't have any problems with the policy telling everybody what they need to do. At the same time, we now want to move to the fact that we had Bruce and Holly, and Bruce is not here in terms of the language. I don't know what happened here, but we asked that assignment to go out so that we can start that process to review another form of the child abuse policy. And so if we're all set for that, because of what I saw in that other form, I would like to take the fundraising policy and just make sure that that was okay and out of the way before I go into the draft.
Leon, do we need to approve the small changes, the edits that were made to, for the Family Services Division?
We can go down through it, but I was explaining what actually took place out there in terms of change. If somebody, you want to scroll down through, and if there was something in there that somebody had offense in terms of the changes. Here in this asterisk, if you want to go down. Yeah.
I mean, that's just the opening.
That's the opening. And then in this first bullet point, the name was changed, and there was Family Service Division, which is DCF is a sub of that, with information to be able to take things on a bigger level if you want to. Same phone number, but Family Service Division and DCF has the same phone number. And you needed to know that. And that's what that change was in there, in that piece. That doesn't change anything in what a person should be doing in the policy. You can stroll on down, and that's the third bullet was the same thing for that change.
Yep.
Training, we didn't change anything there. The availability of the policy, we didn't change anything. Nothing changed in the reference because
Well, actually,
They were
wait a minute.
I did
Yes.
update the references to what
Yes.
you and Bruce had on the document you sent.
Yeah, so the references that refer to all of the things that need to happen in legal references, because we said we wanted to include that, did go on there, which won't change the policy. It still can happen exactly like it's supposed to, and it'll be out and available for everybody to see. You can move on. Definitions. Under the definition here, you define the word Department of Child and Family, and that's the only change there.
Actually, yeah, other one down here.
That's the, in E, that, the name, the correction of the name changed there.
It looks like in G, the SRS, if you don't want SRS in there anymore, should be changed as well for last.
At the,
Oh, yep.
what,
I see.
you get, oh, okay. Okay. All of that, we didn't change anything there. We'll continue on for that. And this is what we didn't have time and didn't want to do last time at this meeting, but we got a chance to get that done because when we started to look, Ed has a question here.
I just think that from our meeting last month, that we set up a committee to get something in front of us. And the committee got something done, but we as a board did not see it. And I think that's a failure sign.
We're going to see that.
I know,
and they
but
just
we
brought-
should have seen it for this meeting.
Could I,
Right, it should be last on the agenda.
excuse me, can I just say something? Just,
Wait.
it might clear this up.
Wait,
It might clear this up. It might clear this up.
go ahead, click.
Since you're saying that the policy will be in place until everybody can refer to what was drafted to be talked about today, but it's not. In your policy, you have the DCF regulation. Can I respectfully ask that underneath the little first paragraph, we can say, it is directed to the mandated reporting law. This will be followed.
That's all it needs to say.
You mean a comment right at the beginning of this policy?
Right
Put it in
underneath,
there.
the boards will, da-da-da-da-da.
Let me
Strike
see.
all that other stuff
Oh,
until
what
such
other
time that we can come together and look at what was written by the law.
No, you can't scratch.
I don't see what you're
I
talking
did.
about, and I'm saying,
Any school
wants to make another
district,
reference.
and any mandated reporter
where,
that suspects will call 1-800-649-5285. It says it all. and we can work on all the other things that
She
were,
just wants to make another reference.
Okay.
It's right there.
That's right there, and so,
no, what's there is muddy.
well, it may be,
If-
but what I'm saying, we're not finna edit all of this out. The changes that we're gonna make here is a reference, that was the only thing, we have to go back to the boards and all this on, and that's what we're trying to say. We're gonna get there with the other piece, but we have to make sure that the changes that are looked at here are not substantial that we can't say we don't have a policy in place. At least the old policy will still be in place with SRS in it, because this won't be held up in the process.
Which we'd like
And
to
so
get to.
we don't want that to happen. So the quickest thing that could happen, which we were trying to do at this last meeting, didn't have time, was to say, we want to change this name and phone number and move right on, and then let a committee go out and look at everything else and come back, and then we can work on it.
So Holly, what you're saying is like up in the box there, right at the heading, would you like it to say something like policy under review, refer to law, blah, 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 with a
That
reference,
might cover it.
with a reference to that, rec card they call it, or?
Required law,
Right.
mandated reporting, child abuse, neglect law.
Well, in terms of changing the name, we got reporting abuse and then neglect. And you're saying that somebody is out here you need to know that it says mandated. Is that the word that you're having to? I'm trying to make sure I understand what it is that's got everybody.
The principals and the administrators know that they're mandated reporters.
Now, one of the things that's surprising that everybody said, the administrators and all of the teachers are trained and taught and on all of this. And so I can't understand where
Exactly.
it's supposed to be.
Can't understand either.
I'm having to try to make sure I understand, why is it that some administrator is not saying they know what they're supposed to be doing? I find that very hard.
We have a
Because
superintendent that says it's a working document.
It's a living document that changes.
Well, it is, that's.
All documents change.
it's-
Well, we don't want
there's
that.
nothing
Right
wrong with
now.
that
We
statement.
want it concrete, which is this. This is a good policy, the way it's written.
Wait.
You suspect, you call.
We are.
Right.
We're gonna move on with this policy here. We're not gonna change anything else besides the requirement of SRS to DCF and the reference there. And we have the policy in place, and then I'm gonna move on. If we've gone through all of this, I think then we can then move on to the next phase. Have we went down through everything, did we roll down through everything?
I think so. Yes.
And with these minor edificational changes, this policy can go right back to the website and to everybody to say this is what we have. The next thing that we wanted to do is do a review, bring back the requirement, the information that the committee, Holly and Bruce, was working on. I got the copy today, and hadn't had a chance, and everybody needed a chance to read to that. I think that's what Ed was asking for. You didn't have a chance to read or look at this before coming here to this committee.
No.
So we're not gonna get very far with that one. But I'm gonna bring it on the table. But before I bring it on the table, I wanted to make sure that I did not omit farm raising because that's short. And I know that fundraising, the question that was asked by someone, that what needed to happen,
I'm sorry, I still have my
Was
hand
in
up
there.
from before. I know, I just have one quick word to put in.
if you're not, what
I know.
needs to happen here, we have a board
Yeah, I know.
that's responsible for things. And I asked for public comments. And at the time, I'll take the public comments, but we're not gonna let you disrupt every meeting, every time
I've
we
only
have
been
a
to 2 meetings
conversation.
in my life. Can I
Okay.
just ask, when you
So-
guys say it is further the purpose of this policy to make clear the school district employees, it is not their role to be the investigated judge and jury, can you change that to investigated judge or jury? Because to me, it's almost like you're saying they should be all of them, and to me, they shouldn't be any of them. And that's in that first sentence, that's all I'm asking, is that one word get changed to
That's
or
an
jury.
edification change that
Because
may-
someone,
can we go back?
it's just that first paragraph that they shouldn't be any of them, and you guys have it as they shouldn't be all of them. And And that's all I'm asking.
Okay.
That would help.
Lost it.
That wouldn't change the intent of the policy. Okay. You would- That's, we said,
Made clear to the
It's right after the VSA 491.
right here for
Or,
it.
thank
It is
you.
further, the purpose of this policy to make clear to the school district employees that it is not their role to investigate, judge, or jury in case of suspected abuse and neglect. That's correct.
Thank you, right, they just changed it from and to or.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so that was clear, I mean, it was clear to me, and that's why we asked along that line out here for that.
Lisa send it to all of us.
Okay.
She hasn't.
Yeah.
All right, so now we
Sorry
can,
that you-
is there, you all set?
Just
with that?
one thing, Lisa, could you, just send
Yes.
the new one out to
Yes.
all of us?
Thanks.
Thanks.
We're gonna,
Not hold it back till the next meeting, get it out.
I'm gonna get to that point if I can get to it, I'm gonna get to that, but I wanna get this off the table before I want to jump back and forth along that line. Fundraising.
There we go.
In the fundraising policy, we had community members come in and talked about some things that took place, and we wanted to make sure we got it all in and show reference into the policy. So we at line 18, I think, when it says all fundraising activities will comply with federal, state, and local laws and regulations. That is enough information to make sure that anybody that's going out to do fundraising has to understand that there's other restrictions that they may have to consider before they can do that, or when they're doing that. And that's what we were asked to do. And so that was the only change to that policy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
And so that's to move on. That's what I wanted to say. Thanks. Okay. So we got that out of it. So now I can come back to the assignment that was being asked by Holly and Bruce. And I mentioned earlier that Bruce wasn't here, that Holly's here, is that they go out and take a look at the policy and search the web and other places out here and to consider a rewrite of the policy that bring it back to the board so that we can start considering those considerations. That was done. We got it. I got it at this meeting, so I didn't have a chance to dig into it. But when I know that we was getting close to this meeting, is when we had all the other things done. So now we have this policy, and it's going to be given to everybody so that you can read it and be ready to discuss the changes that Bruce and Holly is wanting to bring forth to the committee at our next meeting. And we can do some now if we want to, if you wanted to start out at the top. But we can wait until the next meeting because it wouldn't be fair to everybody because you hadn't had a chance to read it. So I'll ask that we put it on our next committee meeting in September so we can read it. I mean, be ready to discuss it.
And Lisa's going to forward it to everybody so that.
Yeah, everybody is going to be is all set with that? Okay.
September.
So if I'm looking here now, there is tracking sheet. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
The tracking sheet is one of the last things we have down.
And I actually had updated it. I got some more minutes in between when this went out and
So on the tracking sheet, the curriculum policy has gone around all the way, and it needs to go, well, it's gone to SVSU and it's been adopted.
Yep.
Wait, yeah.
so that's ready to go on the website.
Actually, on the site is where that needs to go. The personal learning plan
Same thing.
is the same thing, and it needs to go on the site. Substitute teachers, there it has, BSD, did it get to them on
Yes, the beginning of June, the beginning
the
of
June?
June
And then
1st.
Shasberry had 511, did it go past
Yep,
Shasberry?
Yep.
And that was a warning, adopt, and Woodford, it was an adopt.
Yep.
So the only place that we are looking at is BSD before it comes back to adopt the SVSU.
No, actually, it went to
BSD is
BSD
done.
6-1, and I got the minutes, and it's
Okay.
been adopted, so it will go to SVSU at the end of this month.
And when the way we do this, in the terms of the tracking sheet, if there are board concerns, we take them from the minutes, and we take them directly from the representation of the members from this board in terms of why something was wrong with whatever policy that was on here and for that particular district, and we try to make sure we resolve those issues so that we can move on. So, and sometimes things could go back, and I think we heard the word out here, these are working documents. Any policy that we have in place, if there is something wrong somewhere or is not meeting the needs of the requirements, we will try to bring that back and put it on the list to try to resolve those and make that happen. So in the contents of that, every document we have in terms of policy is a working document. There's nothing in here that can't be changed. So everybody understand that. The optimum class size was back here, it says June, and we just talked about that and made some changes, and that'll be back next, at the next meeting.
So that's not going anywhere, right?
That's not
Or,
going.
or do you want it to start going out for warning?
We needed to leave it in the edifications to go out for one.
Okay.
Okay, so that needs to go out for one. Did I get that right with that one? Yeah. Because we corrected what we needed to have in there. Okay.
Okay.
The condom availability policy, that's out, and with the administrative regs changed with the information from North Bennington so that they can move on that, and we can meet the adopt criteria, and that's to be brought back on the agenda so that we can move items from the administrative regs into the body of the policy for those that we need in there to consider
For,
for September.
wait, which policy?
That was 5145.
Oh, okay. Because,
But it can be adopted if the SVSU votes.
Right, everything is there because we moved those
Okay.
into the administrative regs. Okay.
gotcha. September.
Visit to schools. What happened here? It's been worn through everybody, and I don't know. I mean, we didn't have any. I'm trying to see where did that get held up at? For anybody that had.
It could have been when I got minutes.
Okay, because all the minutes come in, and I think there was some questions at Mount Anthony, is that right, Dave? We want to speak up about these things out here in terms of visiting the schools.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, we got Dave Frederiksen here too. He's sitting on the side over there too. But I think that the question was that everybody was starting to question, but it was a requirement that needed to happen. And the part that dealt with board members to make sure that when you go to the school, that you sign in to let the principal or the administrators know that you're in the building. There's nothing wrong with that. They are accountable for their building and who's in there. And you need to do that under that courtesy. And so that should flow right on, and that was the gist of that particular policy. That's all that any board, any board members should be considered to make sure that you let the administrators know that you're in the building.
So that's gonna move on for adoption.
That should move on.
Or for warning, yeah, no, adoption.
Okay. So now we got child abuse 5005 on here for Bruce and Holly to revise, and it'll be back to us in here for a review at the next meeting. Fundraising should come off and, well, should continue on around, in terms of the boards that have not warned it, Shasberry, Woodford, and SVSD may have done that. So we should.
No,
move
actually,
on to
they've all warned it now, I've gotten it.
that. Okay,
So it'll go for adoption.
okay, that'll go out for adoption. And then, the last policy, anaphylaxis, was to go back to the nurses group for review, and that was out a long time ago. And I don't know why, you know why it got held up anywhere at
My
North
nurse-
Bennington and BSD and
The nurse I'm married to knows nothing about it. So
right. So it should go back, it should continue on. If Nancy was the nurse that was representing the information to try to.
she may just
communicate.
not be a part of that group.
It may be a group out here somewhere, but we don't know. So I'm saying this thing should start to move back to North Bennington. We'll find out because we're asking people to look at the things and state what they may have questions about so that we can resolve them and move on. BSD
Wasn't
and
on
then
the
the Mount
agenda.
Anthony.
It wasn't on the last agenda.
So it wasn't on the last agenda, so we'll put it on there. That's what we're saying. We'll move that on, Lisa.
Okay.
Okay. So that completes all of the agenda items that came through on the that we had planned for today. I did want to just call to your attention and then that there were some information that I received right prior to this meeting, and again, I can't do anything with it, and I'll study this information because there was a lot of questions by someone, Janet Palmer from the high school / union rep asked a lot of questions inside of a meeting. And I haven't had a chance to study it, but just reading some of the things that were questioned already what we considered in place and don't need to have any changes. And so what I'll do is take that information, and when we it was sent to Dave Barrio.
Yeah, I left for me today, this was in my mailbox.
Then that's all, and it says June 6th.
Yeah.
And so that's today, and we hadn't had a chance to go through it, but I did a quick read here. We want information to come back from anybody. And part of the things is that it may be that we have policies in place and we have procedures, but if people are perceiving something to be something different or are not in existence, we owe it to ourselves to try to make it more transparent for them and less confusing in terms of that. Because who are we? The policies are for the people that runs the schools and the students and administrators and so forth along that line, and the procedures. And the public is the one that's paying the bills to make sure that they support, they spend their money to support the education of the school and the establishment. We want to be transparent enough to make sure that they understand and know where their dollars is going and how it's being spent and how the job that we said that we're going to do in terms of educating their kids is going to be done. And so I can say that when somebody brings information, we owe it to respond to it, look at our policies and procedures, and make changes when we can, and agree as a group that it makes sense to do certain things. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. We have Frank.
If you don't mind, I would like to just make a statement. Basically, we live in Vermont, and it's the best place in the world to live, in my opinion. But we move at a slower pace in general. But the world doesn't move at our pace. The world's moving a lot faster, and partly I'm responding to the notion that these are living documents and they need to be dealt with in a timely manner. Also to what Holly had mentioned earlier, when she had suggested that maybe we meet more often or whatever. Whatever we do, I think we have to change how we run the policy committee, because we're not able to address things as they come up and in a timely fashion that satisfies, I'm sure, much of the public, and certainly I know myself. Things are changing too rapidly. We can't meet once a month and not that I'm looking for more work to do or more meetings to attend, but we have to find a better way to address these issues. And that's basically it.
Yes, I'd like to
hear.
make a motion
Yeah.
that we meet in August, particularly for this one policy. Only
School,
because
the administrators won't be back
Right.
at the first Monday in August.
we don't need the administrators, we need this
Uh,
policy committee.
We need the policy committee made up of all of this group of individuals, and we need to have those individuals in place to do that. And that's why that took place.
How many
out
people
there.
can come?
That's not a question about whether you want to have some people to come. What we're saying here is that the individuals are on vacation. And the dates that we're going to meet was set so that we can meet on certain dates and times, and we're going to, if there was an emergency and we really need to meet, we'll meet. We can meet at the end of the month, but that's congested when all of the teachers are coming back and all administrators are trying to get ready for school. So for the sake of saying we want to meet, I don't know of anything that's urgent enough right now to say that we got to try to squeeze and put disadvantages to the administrators in August.
Well, I disagree
We've-
with you, I
okay.
think child abuse is a very important thing.
So,
And I'd like to stand on the record to say, I'd like this meeting in August, and I'd also like to take a survey of the people here who would like to come in August and do this, to see if we have a quorum. Too
I
fast?
really appreciate the effort and in terms of wanting that, but I think one of the things that I set the meetings and the quorum won't help, and I'm not, and we've gone through and set the dates and the agenda, and I've stated enough to say who is responsible for being here and to do that, and it's going to put a lot of people at a disadvantage. And so for the sake of meeting, we're going to meet September, as we indicated on the list. And I really want to thank everybody for coming. On September the 12th is the next Monday's meeting, because the first Monday of that month is a holiday. And so September 12th is that, and we have a list of all of the dates that we've submitted to SVSU for a meeting, and that's when we'll meet again. I know we would like to try to move things faster, but when you're dealing with you're dealing with Shasberry, you're dealing with North Bennington, you're dealing with DSB, you're dealing with Pownell, you got Mount Anthony, and you have all of those. Each change we make has to go to all of the boards to consider. And believe me, the language, every time we make a change, someone on one board may not like it, and then it needs to come back or it's held up. If you hold it up, that's another month. And then it goes around again, and that may be another month. So things could just really go. So education here and trying to speed things up at this meeting where it would only take 1 month is the minimum amount of time that we can do things out here for a new change in terms of a policy. No, I said warning is 1 month.
Right.
Though to adopt it takes another. It takes 2 months to go around through the process. If everything's just smooth.
Yeah.
Thank you for attending tonight, and I hope I've not been inconsiderate to anyone, because it's not an easy thing to manage. Thank you.